Good morning. Welcome to Rochester Today. It's Monday morning already. I'm Andy Brownell on Newstalk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. And it's time to chat with the mayor, Rochester Mayor Kim Norton. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Another month has flown by just like that.
It does. The fall is quickly leaving us behind.
Yeah, it was a nice extended fall, so I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely.
All right. Of all the topics, I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me, Mayor, is the federal government has officially written the check, I guess would be a good way to put it, for the Link bus rapid transit system.
Yeah, that was really fun to have the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority, and our Congress, some of our Congress folks, representatives from the House of Representatives at the federal level and local legislators all joined us for a celebration of that $85 million check that was awarded to Minnesota. And it's been nerve-wracking as mayor because we applied obviously several years ago. This has been in the works for some time. And you get notices saying you were ranked high, so you keep planning and, you know, you've met this level, but you don't actually know you get the check until way down, you know, until you've been formally approved till way down the line. And so it's nerve-wracking to think we're spending all this time in what you think is approval, but you never know, particularly when things move from administration to administration, right? You don't know if the work that you've started under one administration will carry on for the next. So a little nerve-wracking, but very exciting to receive that $85 million investment in bus rapid transit.
From those of us on the outside, it seems like it was a very, very smooth process. You put in your application, and then they go through all this, and then you get your big check for $85 million. But you're telling me there are a lot of meetings and a lot of consultation.
Lots and lots of work between when we first applied. Try to think of our very first application, maybe was even, you know, do a little bit more work on it. And then, you know, then it's like, okay, this has hit this high mark. And so you just keep trying, assuming, right, that you're on the right path. They're giving you all the signals. But, you know, until they show up and say you're formally approved, you're just moving along as best you can and have your fingers crossed. So
I imagine this is a fairly competitive process as well. There's a lot of communities throughout the country who are trying to get some of this funding.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I've been doing since I became mayor is, you know, utilizing the relationships I have and the knowledge I have about, you know, how government works to be able to go up and do that advocacy with the departments, with the FTA. We've met with them several times over the years, as well as our Congress folks, asking them to write letters of support. And so it's been a fun process, I have to say. I do enjoy the work, and when it pays off like this, it makes it worthwhile. All those trips to D.C. and the phone calls and the Facebook meetings, or not Facebook, but
sure, Zooms or whatever you want to call them.
Teams, yeah. We look at Facebook.
I looked back when I received word that the money, you know, had been finalized, and I had forgotten about this. The original request was considerably smaller than what the actual award ended up being. Did that make it that much more complicated in the process?
Well, of course, you know, yes, prices change. Prices of steel goes up. Price of construction goes up. You know, those types of things happen in a multi-year, you know, process like this. So, yes, and at the same time, the federal government will come back to you and say, well, we see that this might be a historic area. So now you need to go back and give us rationale for why you should be allowed to be there if this is a historic area. So all those, it just happens time and time again. Plus, you know, in a process like this where you need right of way, you need to have property in order to put, you know, an underground tunnel, you know, you're affecting businesses along the route too. And so that process also takes time to work with, you know, local folks and do purchasing or make those kinds of arrangements and agreements that make something like this come to reality.
As part of it too, I mean, you really can't start writing big checks for things like property acquisition and all of the other pieces that have to come together to make this thing work until you actually get the word from Washington that the money is actually coming.
Exactly. And so that's what's been happening in the last few months as it looked like this was, we were for sure it was happening and we were getting a timeline on when it would happen. Then you can start that negotiation. And there are timelines for things, maybe tighter than we would like. You'd like to be able to negotiate with people longer, but you can't because you have to meet timeline guidelines for the federal government. So yeah, it's a complicated process. And the staff did a great job of sticking with it, working through it, addressing the questions that came up both locally and at the federal level to get this over the finish line.
Were you getting indications from the FTA that, hey, you guys have a really good project here and it's going to be all right? Do you get those kind of reassurances?
Well, I kept asking the staff for those reassurances because I didn't want us to get ahead of our skis. And they were saying, nope, this is looking good. While it's not formally approved yet, they're giving us every green light to keep moving. So, I don't live in that world, in the development world, but they were feeling quite confident that they were getting the right signals to keep moving. So, we trusted it and it paid off. And here we are with a check for $85 million to make this a reality.
And it's hard to imagine that when the whole DMC process began and the public transit piece was such a huge piece of this that it was recognized right away with the growth that's going to happen in downtown Rochester. And now we're seeing, we've seen it already, but now we're really going to see it as Mayo expands.
Well, I think
you can't build enough parking ramps.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Between, cars on streets, parking struggles, we had to address this issue of how do we continue to move people through our town in a timely fashion that works for them, right? Every 5 minutes is going to be, during peak hours and just not much longer than that during non-peak hours to keep people comfortable that they can hop on a bus and get to their car or home quickly, right? People don't want to say, oh, I've got to wait 30 minutes and I need to be somewhere. They need to know it's coming right away. So, this was very important. It will, hopefully keep as many cars and buses, that we've had in the past off the streets. And we just have this one streamlined, quick, responsive process that will make it easy for everyone and free. The best part.
Yeah.
Not to build, but free for people to use.
Well, yeah, but also that part of it's not going to be a burden on the taxpayer either. Mayo Clinic is picking up the tab.
Mayo Clinic's paying for a lot of it. And I would say, and I think people say, oh, well, those are our tax dollars that you got. Yes, they are. And if we didn't get them, some other community would. So to remember that we all do pay taxes for the greater good, but we're getting to take advantage of that greater good because our needs were recognized as viable and necessary for a growing community. So it's a positive outcome, definitely.
Okay. Well, we have to take a quick break. We've been talking about the Link Bus Rapid Transit, which is going to be transformative for Rochester, I think. And it's at this stage of the game, looking at it, it's hard to, I guess, even imagine all the ramifications moving forward, but it's going to be interesting to say the very least. But we have to take a quick break. We'll be back with Mayor Kim Norton on Rochester Today in just a moment at News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96. Welcome back, everyone. Rochester Today. I'm Andy Brownell with Rochester Mayor Kim Norton. Monday morning on the program here at News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We started talking about the Link Bus Rapid Transit, which is now going to become a reality with, I guess, construction right next year?
I believe we're talking maybe March for groundbreaking. Yes.
Wow.
Well, hopefully, we'll work as quickly as we can because, there's going to be so much disruption in the community. This will be minimal compared to what's happening probably over at the Mayo Clinic, areas. They put their 5 buildings in over the next few years, but it's a lot for people. When you have construction in a community, it's a lot for people to manage. So we'll do the best we can to keep lanes open and have routes available so folks can get where they're going.
I've been told that one thing that we do need to keep in mind and people be prepared for, that for a period of time, 2nd Street Southwest will be completely shut down, particularly by St. Mary's Hospital.
Yep. We will have to find alternative routes for folks that are, that are prepared for, and that may be, I'm not sure exactly what they'll do. It could be removing, off-street parking for a time, or, we'll see how they manage it. But I know they're planning ahead. They're working with the businesses down there. They'll get information out as, early as possible so folks can start rerouting themselves. But again, it's what, it's the pain that you have to go through in order to get the outcome that you want. And hopefully they'll do it in a timely manner.
What will it look like as it goes right through the central core of the downtown? Will the bus rapid transit have its own dedicated lane, almost like light rail?
As I've seen the drawings, yes, it will have a dedicated, but it will also be right turn lanes. So if a car is going to make a right turn off 2nd Street, for instance, they can get in that bus lane to make the right turn. But otherwise, it's a dedicated, bus lane. It will cut down the number of lanes on 2nd Street, but also will take off I remember talking to Joe Powers years ago, who said he had somebody count the number of buses that came before, between hotel shuttles and city buses, Mayo Clinic buses, that someone had counted like 1,000 or something in a day. Well, we'll be able to cut that down because people can use the link line, which will, take you back and forth every 5 minutes all day long.
I imagine it'll be really useful between the hospital and the downtown campus as well.
Oh, certainly. For staff and patients, absolutely. But also, I think the transit villages, that we're anticipating at either end will allow a place for people, for instance, that are coming in off Highway 52 to just pull in a parking garage and hop on a bus and get downtown, go to St. Mary's if they want to, or the Miracle Mile there, get off and do some shopping, go on downtown, further, go to the Civic Center. There are many options for folks. It'll just take some experimentation and getting used to. Because this will be really new for folks.
I think you're right. I think the uses of it are a little bit hard to imagine right now.
Yeah.
Because we've had nothing. I remember going to Chicago for the first time and relying on public transit, and other larger communities, Washington, D.C. for that matter. And we're used to just driving and parking and getting out. And then when you do this, and if it's done the right way and it's really easy to use, all of a sudden, I'm going to use it. Why not?
But it's going to take some trial, right? And people getting out of their comfort zone for a short period of time to find out how well it works. And to the point that some people make, if you want to go out to dinner before play at the Civic Theater, like I'm going to, regularly, then you can take it down, hop off, hop on. It's all free, right? Go a little bit further down the road, hop on, hop off, get back to your car at the end of the night. Just be really easy.
One part of this, when the process all began, and the idea of not building more parking ramps as more traffic is brought to the downtown, which we've already seen happening, although the pandemic did affect that. The visitor coming in to go to Mayo, and I guess I'm still a little skeptical that they would take advantage of this. But I imagine Mayo is going to probably make a big push to have them take advantage of this.
Sure. I'm sure they will. But where I see it maybe being the most advantageous for visitors is if you're, might be staying in a hotel downtown. It'll give you more flexibility to do that. And then if you have a family member that's maybe in the hospital for a short period of time after they might have visits at Mayo Clinic and Gonda and what have you downtown for a time, then, and the new buildings, of course, that are coming in, then if they have to go for a hospital treatment, they can just, hop on the rail, go out, come back. They don't have to get in a car and park and, pay and do all that. They can just go back and forth between those two campuses for, procedures, tests,
sure,
and give you more options of what hotels you want to stay in.
So if construction begins next spring, when in 2026 do we envision this thing actually operating?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll be 2026 or 2027 that they'll be able to get it going. We'll just have to see on weather, how we're so dependent on the weather here for construction. So I hate to make promises, but I know they're anxious to get it open as quickly as possible. But you have to follow all the rules and regulations, along the way. So I know they'll be doing what they can. I know that there's some underground work over there in front of St. Mary's Hospital that'll has to happen. That's not, easy work. But we'll see. I'm hopeful within the next year or two, we're going to be happily traipsing about town on a Link bus rapid transit line.
And these buses are going to be custom made, I imagine. So how long will it take to get delivery of the actual buses?
Yeah, I think they're hoping to have them from the start, but they're the articulated longer buses. They're going to be similar to the newer electric buses that we have in the community now. We've got 4 of them, and they'll be similar to that. I think they're going to look a little bit different. You know, initially they had promised they would look like trains. I'm not sure they're able to do that, but they will look like city line with some modifications. So, but they will be dedicated to back and forth, right? That's where they're going to be. And I'm hopeful that the construction of the buses will be done when we need them. That's right now.
There's a lot of moving pieces is what you're saying.
Exactly.
All right. Part of this, and this is on the agenda for the city council this week, the FTA is making the city run through a process of reassessing how our mass transit is operated, as in, do we use vendors? Do we do it ourselves? Maybe you can explain what's going on with that.
Well, I'm not as clear about that process, other than there are FTA requirements for things that we do, and I think we probably needed to take a look at this ourselves anyway. So this is new, right? This is the first time we've had bus rapid transit, and it's probably fairly unusual for a city our size. We just have so many visitors and employees that come into our community to work that it made it a project that was supportable. But how it runs and who runs it, all those things need to be examined. And so, it's just one more step that we have to go through in this process. And I don't think we anticipate any problems, but we have to do due diligence for the FTA.
So it might end up being status quo.
Could be.
In the end, but it's a required thing from the federal government to fill it, dot the I's and cross the T's before.
Absolutely.
We start turning dirt.
So.
Well, we live in interesting times, Mayor, especially for the city. This is can't overstate how big a deal this will be for the city as this moves forward. I'm just imagining along the route of this rapid bus line, the development that will likely take place as people wanting to open restaurants and shops to take advantage of these visitors that you're talking about, who will find it easy all of a sudden to go out between their appointments and
Absolutely.
Do something instead of having to go find their car in a parking ramp and drive someplace and find another parking spot. They'll be able to go right out the door of either the hospital or the Mayo complex and zip off to someplace.
Yeah, and we've been really focused on entrepreneurship, small business. This will be one more way, a bus line that travels back and forth to highlight those small businesses that are along the route. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I know I've seen KROC has posted this, but worth mentioning this really remarkable growth that we've had in our workforce here in Rochester, leading the state by multiple times. I mean, the numbers were, I think, 7,800 jobs in the last 12 months.
Year. Yeah.
Compared to Minneapolis, which is in the 1,100-ish realm.
Actually, they're in the negative now.
They're negative now. This was the month before, I guess. It was that I was looking at the numbers.
Which was surprising.
Yeah. And we're doing so well. And not only that, there was at least one report that came out that said we're one of the top in the country for this growth. The percentage, I think, is like right now was 6.3%. Last time I saw, or 6.4%. Really remarkable growth. And it's hard sometimes for the residents who see, like we all do, these new buildings that we keep building with retail, street level retail, which we want to activate, that they don't feel like there's growth. But there is growth in the job market, and there will be growth in the small business market as we continue to grow. And I hope folks can feel hopeful for all the growth that we're expected to have, and we're trying to do it right.
We have to take a break for news already. We're with Rochester Mayor Kim Norton this morning. It's Rochester Today. Back in a moment on Newstalk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 News app. Good morning and welcome back. Rochester Today and Monday morning. I'm Andy Brownell on Newstalk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM with Rochester Mayor Kim Norton. And before we went into the news break, we were talking about the data from the state showing just explosion as far as employment in the Rochester area and the job workforce. We're seeing them at record levels And I've been in this business for a long time and tracked these statistics for a long time, Kim. And I have never seen numbers like this in this community. It astounds me every month when they come in. But during the news break, you and I were talking about, and we've mentioned this before on the program, the other challenge is as these job opportunities grow, finding the workers to fill these jobs.
Absolutely. And while we anticipate, and I think back to the years when we were Money Magazine's, number one, people came to the community because they saw that. Well, people are going to come to the community because of all the growth that we're having. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we have local people too who could benefit from what's happening from this growth, because we have 10 years left of Destination Medical Center growth and development. We have Mayo Clinic, who is for certain going to be growing for the next 10 years and beyond. As well as all the growth that's going to follow that. And so the construction and trades industries right now will be booming. They are looking for people to hire. We have the Bloomberg Global Mayor's Challenge grant that we have 1 year left on, not quite a year at this point, and we really need to get people into the trades in order to have people that live here benefit, not just bring people in from outside the community. So I hope folks are going to workforce development or calling City Hall and asking, how can I take advantage of what this booming economy, and find a job and get trained, and we can help support particularly women of color in getting into the trades.
There are a lot of misconceptions about working in the trades and the kind of jobs that are available working in the trades. And the amount of money you can make working in the trades.
We have worked so hard to try to get that information out. You can make $30, $40, $50 an hour depending on what area you go into. There are jobs. We have a list of, 40 different jobs. It's not just hammer and nails, folks. There's a broad range of things, electricians and as you mentioned, there's high voltage and low voltage certifications that people can get in. And Workforce Development Inc. out there is, at the RCTC College, and RCTC itself, for that matter, has programs to take people to the next level so they can take advantage of these great high-paying jobs. Depending on which jobs you take, there's insurance and benefits that go along with those. The union trades are very good in that area. So, we hope folks are thinking about how can they improve their own lives at the same time the city is growing and have the people that live here benefiting.
I have a good friend who's an electrician, and he happens to be working for one of the firms that has a continual contract with Mayo. Mm-hmm. And he basically, any young person he sees, he grabs and goes, "Do you want to be an electrician?" Because, he's nearing retirement age. And there's so many of these people who are nearing retirement age, and they need to be replaced. And so they're constantly, hey, do you know how much money you can make doing this? And it's not the work you think it is. It's a lot different work, especially when it's new construction.
It is, and it's high tech. A lot of it's really high tech, and there's trainings for it. And, I think we need to stop this misconception that doing these jobs is somehow, you have to have a 4-year degree to get everything. You can get 2-year training. You can get, as you mentioned, depending on where you're at in your history, you can spend as little as 6 weeks, 12 weeks to start getting ready, or you can go into a 6-month, 12-month training and be making good pay within a year, right? And as I said, we need to get local people to understand that not everything requires a 4-year degree to have a career that's great.
And you mentioned the union aspect of it. A lot of it is training while you're getting paid. You're an apprentice.
Absolutely. The apprenticeships, and there's always a need for that. Absolutely. In fact, I think it's National Apprenticeship Week. So good that you mentioned apprenticeships. Thank you.
That first year might not be all that fun, but after that, things get pretty lucrative if you stick with it. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back in a moment. I wanted to talk to you about affordable housing in Rochester because there's been some movement on that front.
Yep.
We'll talking with Rochester Mayor Kim Norton on Rochester Today. Back in a moment on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Welcome back to Rochester Today, News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Rochester Mayor Kim Norton with us, our monthly visit, checking in on things happening in the city. And on Friday last week, on the affordable housing front, there was a fairly large event with Rochester Homes, if I remember right, or First Homes, I'm sorry.
First Homes. Yeah, we have some land grant housing, 2 different models, 10 homes so that the county unveiled. The first one is ready for purchase for purchase. And then they said over the next 10 or 12 days, each of the houses will be ready, right? They're moving along up. So, different models, one slab on grade, so no basement. The other one's a split level. They're lovely, small, of course, but lovely homes, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, living and kitchen area. I mean, the garage that you need, they're lovely homes. So
they're starter homes.
They're starter homes. Absolutely they are. And they're much needed. So we have those. We had another opening of a Prairie Ridge project that's going to have townhomes that will have apartments and will have single family homes. So, we just had the groundbreaking on that last week. And so I think we have a lot to celebrate. And I believe the county also had another, groundbreaking for something that they're doing. So there's a lot going on in the housing market. I think as I looked at the numbers, I was a little concerned at first because houses that are currently here aren't selling like hotcakes and there aren't enough of them on the market. But there's a lot of new development going in to help offset that. So I'm feeling a little better. I was nervous.
I do a weekly program with Robin Gwaltney, who obviously people associate with real estate here in town.
Absolutely.
And we've been doing that program now for, 6 years, I think. And when you see the number of homes now listed in town, and we think that that's relatively high, that's only because of what happened during the pandemic when there were no homes available. It's still a relatively tight supply.
It is. And so these new ones are welcome, and they're at a variety of price points, which I think is really important too. So very excited that we're able, to have this happen. And I actually asked the staff recently, I said, I've sure been signing a lot of contracts based on action that the city council is taking. When are we going to actually see them? And then literally within a week, we had 3 of them happening in the city and county. So it was like, thank you. Quick response.
You mentioned with First Homes that's a land grant housing. And how does that work? Does that mean that the people who live in the homes don't actually own the land that the house is on?
Right. They own their home. They don't own the land. And so when they sell, the price of the land stays in the land grant pool, and it is owned by First Homes. The interesting thing, and where you can get really great equity, I think, is the split levels, where they will finish the upper level, they leave the lower level unfinished. You can do that at your, as you have money, as you live there. I did that when I first moved to town. I moved into a split level.
We did the same thing with our basement, right?
Exactly. So by the time the homeowner fixes up that lower level, the value of the property goes way up, and they will get to recoup that value of their investment in that property, just not the land value. That stays with the home. So, I think it's a good deal for people. It allows the prices to be considerably lower because land's expensive. And they don't have to be a part of that. And is it something everyone wants to do? Maybe or maybe not, but I think as you pointed, it's a starter home. It gets them on their way to gaining equity over time. Then when they move into a larger home, should they choose to, they have some equity built for that next step.
I know people when the first homes started, 10, 15 years ago.
Or Mayo Clinic employees.
Yeah, by Eastwood Golf Course, I think they did some of them. And I know folks who took advantage of that, and it did exactly that. They got into that home, and this was even before they had children, and they built up that equity, and they were able to use that to get their next home, which had a lot more room for the more kids. And now, and in fact, they have moved on to much larger homes because guess what? They work in the trades, and they've been very successful.
There you go. That's the whole point and purpose of this. So it's a great option for folks. And I can just say, First Homes was really clear at the groundbreaking last week that, call and ask questions to find out if you qualify for this, because Some of them have, they may be limited to people at a certain percent of the poverty level and below, because they are meant to be, starter homes for folks. Call and ask, and there's an application, and they'll help you, happily help you, give you direction, and help you fill out a form if you need to. So give them a call.
Well, we only have a few more minutes left to chat this morning, Mayor, and when we're talking about housing, it reminds me that we're still dealing with homelessness in our community, and the cold weather is upon us. Maybe not the really nasty cold yet, but already we're, in the 20s overnight. Where are we at? Are we, as a community, ready for what's going to happen this winter with the people that we have who are dealing with this issue?
I have not heard that the numbers have grown significantly, and that between the warming shelter run by Catholic Charities, the overflow shelter at the Salvation Army that's also run by Catholic Charities, that there is enough space in those to accommodate the folks that are homeless. And of course, the landing takes care of services during the day for those folks. So, as well as many other agencies in town. So I believe we're still okay. We'll have to see, as what happens in the winter, but we've had a significant drop in the tents and the camping in areas that people shouldn't camp this year, which is great, and more use of the facilities that we're funding and donations from the community who have been so generous to support the warming shelter, and I really want folks to know Catholic Charities, who's doing these programming, need to continue to have donations from businesses and individuals in order to keep people safe throughout the winter. So I hope people are generous with their gifts to Catholic Charities and the warming shelter, which will also benefit Salvation Army, of course, because we're paying to keep that open as well. So lots going on there, and I'm hopeful we'll have a safe winter and everyone's sheltered.
All right, and one other one for you. Are you still accepting applications for the Mayor's Medal of Honor, or where are we at in that process?
Well, last week was the last day for that. But we are in the selection process for Mayor's Medal of Honor. And one more thing I will say is we're extending through November, at least a little bit into November, input from the community for Rochester Vision 2050. So if people would please go to the city's webpage, go to the office of the mayor, and right at the top it says survey, although I don't really see it as a big survey so much as an input place. It's a place for you to type in your ideas about what we need in Rochester. And, we're going to be closing this up, wrapping it up so we can give it to the consultants so they know what the members of the city of Rochester want. We're going to have to be handing that off to them very soon. So if they would please go in there and give their ideas on how to make Rochester an even better place, I'd appreciate it.
This is your last chance.
This is
for this part.
For this, exactly.
All right, Mayor. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
You as well. Mayor Kim Norton on Rochester Today. It's News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.